So before we dive into discussing product selection criteria, we need to discuss niche selection. Now this is a subject that many people get bogged down with. The most common mistake I see people make when selecting a niche is that they become victim to what I call paralysis by overanalysis. It's not that niche selection is completely unimportant when growing a successful FBA business. It's that there are way more important aspects for you to focus your attention on. The only real consideration that does need to be taken into account when selecting products to sell is whether that product category that niche falls under on Amazon is gated or ungated. Gated categories usually require you to submit extra documentation to Amazon before you can sell products in that category. So that's why in a PDF directly following this lecture, I've attached a link to the Amazon website page which is going to show you all of the gated categories for which you need to apply specifically to sell in. And it's usually fairly easy to become ungated in most categories. But note that it is something that you will need to do before you begin selling in that specific gated product category. But other than that, there are no hard or fast rules for niche selection. The truth is, you're actually far better off taking a product-driven approach. So what exactly does this mean? Well, instead of focusing on a specific niche to sell in, we're going to focus our attention to how the individual product is performing. After all, that's what we really care about. We care about how good the individual product sells. This also has the added benefit of making sure that I can give general advice that will cater to all of my students. It's no good me showing you how to find products within the baby niche if you've structured your entire business around the outdoors niche. Again, we want to take a product-driven approach. This approach is what's taken my business from making a loss to now making comfortably over 6 figures per year. And I'm sure you'll have great success using it also. Out of all the criteria that I'm going to teach you, this first one is no doubt probably the most obvious, but it's necessary to cover it anyway, so that we're all on the same page. It won't be a surprise for most of you to know that demand leads to more sales, which is correlated with more money for ourselves. So we want to find products which have a high demand, and specifically, we want to require a product at a bare minimum to be selling no less than 250 units per month on Amazon. Not only do we want to sell more units per month so that we can make more money, that's a given, but an often missed or perhaps misunderstood point that is vital to all FBA businesses is cash flow. If you don't have cash flow, you don't have cash coming in to restock, and you don't have cash to invest in a second product to expand your business. There is, however, one exception that we can make to this 250 units per month rule, and that is when the product price is over $40. In this situation, the profit we would be making would be worth our time and investment, even if the product was selling less than 250 units per month. And in this scenario, I would personally consider the product if the sales were greater than 200 units per month. So now let's say that you've discovered a market with a ton of demand. So the next thing that we need to take a look at is the competition. The fact is that many products have great demand. However, the issue is that if that product niche is far too competitive, in that case, it's going to make it extremely difficult for us to get ranked anywhere near page 1 for the main product's keyword. It's not that you can't rank a competitive product at the top of the search results. It's just that why would we want to make life harder for ourselves? We want product niches with high demand and low competition. Now let's take the classic example of a yoga mat. If you search yoga mat on Amazon and then you use the Jungle Scout Chrome extension to analyze all the products that appear on the first page, you'll see that they have amazing demand. Some of the sellers are making 5 figures per month alone on this single product. But then, if you take a look at the reviews for the exact same yoga mats, it's safe to say they're going to be well beyond the cutoff that I'm going to advise you apply of having no more than 75 reviews. So why have I chosen 75 to be the cutoff for our reviews? If it's so important to find products that have low competition, why not find products that have, say, 30 or 20 reviews, right? Well, the fact is that 9 times out of 10, any market worth selling a product in is going to have competition. And that's because other sellers just like you will have came along with their Jungle Scout tool and they'll have seen this product has great demand, so they themselves have decided to start selling that product on Amazon. And over time, the reviews have slowly begun to build up. So unless we're one of the very first people to discover a great product opportunity, which is unlikely, then we want to tolerate some level of competition. And in my experience, 75 reviews is a happy medium. We want to sell products that fall, on average, between the price point of $20 and $50. So what makes this price range so special? Well, it's what we call the impulse buying range. This is because, for the vast majority of people who visit the product page, the amount of money they are going to be paying for the product is so small that they're going to feel comfortable not doing any further research about the product before making a purchasing decision. For a lot of people, spending say $35 on a product and then it turning out to not be to the standard that they expected isn't such a huge deal to them. They can handle the buying risk. And at this point you might be thinking, well, in that case, why have the lower price point set to $20? Surely the cheaper the product, the more easy it's going to be for people to make a buying decision. Why don't we just source very cheap products from China and then sell them on Amazon for a cheaper price? We'd be making the same amount of profit per unit and we'd be selling more units. Well, my answer to this would be, that would be a great idea, until you understand that Amazon FBA fees are not linear. The cut that Amazon takes from you per product that you sell does not reduce at the same rate that your price does. So a larger proportion of the money you made from the sale goes to Amazon as your product price decreases. That's why we have the lower limit of $20. $20 is low enough to encourage lots of people to make impulse purchases, but high enough to ensure that we still make a good profit per item on what we sell. So now that begs the question, why have the upper price limit of $50? Surely the more you can charge for the product, the greater proportion of the money that the customer pays for the product will end up in your pocket and not Amazon's. And this is actually completely true. However, there is one issue, and that is that for the vast majority of FBA sellers, sourcing products that have a price point of say $60 on Amazon from China is simply going to cost too much. For example, let's say your supplier has a minimum order quantity of 500 units, and they charge $25 per unit at that order quantity. Then that's going to cost you $12,500 alone just for the products, and that doesn't even include shipping. 9 times out of 10, that's going to be too much for most FBA sellers to purchase. Quickly over time, it becomes clear why having a price range of $20 to $50 is the sweet spot. In an ideal world, any product that we choose to sell on Amazon will be as light as possible. And this is because shipping costs can quickly pile up and eat into your profit margins. That's why I recommend an upper weight limit of no more than £2 per unit when fully packaged. Anything over £2 and the shipping costs become too large, and that's whether you're using sea or air shipping. It doesn't matter. Now, related to weight is product size. Amazon charges you more per unit for storing products in their warehouses if they deem the product to be oversized. And note that these following oversized dimensions apply when the product is fully packaged. So what are they? Well, the item must be less than 18 inches on its longest side, less than 14 inches on its median side, and less than 8 inches on its shortest side. We want to be 100% sure that any product we import from China over to Amazon meets this criteria. I myself, when first starting out, made the mistake of sending in an oversized product from China to Amazon without realizing that it was oversized. The added oversized fee cut into my profit margins immensely, so I don't want you to have to undergo the same shock that I did. And the great thing about Jungle Scout is that it allows you to actually filter out items that don't meet these very specific search criteria. We want to sell products on Amazon that aren't going to break easily for two main reasons. First, we don't want high rates of returns cutting into our profit margins. Secondly, we don't want lots of negative customer feedback on our product listing. The time when our products are at most risk of being damaged is during the shipping process from China to Amazon. Despite popular and sometimes tongue-in-cheek comments from other FBA sellers, the vast majority of Amazon warehouse employees actually treat your products very well. So our main danger is the shipping process. And there's a very short mental checklist that I like to apply to any product which seems borderline fragile. Number 1. Is it likely that the product would become damaged or even smash if I dropped it from hip level? 2. Does the product have more than one moving part? And 3. Would it be tough to make this product to a good standard of quality when being produced in mass bulk in China? And now the obvious products to stay away from, given this criteria, are any glass item, watches, and most types of jewellery. These are all products that I've completely avoided selling on Amazon, and I strongly recommend that you stay away from selling them too. Lastly, it's worth pointing out that although it's not necessary to exclude electrical items from your list of potential products, you do need to be wary when sourcing them. You don't want to purchase rubbish quality electrical items and then deal with the massive rates of high returns and then deal with the massive rates of returns that come with it. This isn't an issue most of the time. I myself have had much success selling electrical items in the past, although my advice would be that if you do end up deciding that you want to sell electrical items, pay extra attention to the reviews and ratings of the supplier that you purchase from on Alibaba. Only buy electrical items from a reputable Alibaba supplier. Okay, so next we're going to discuss legal issues. Some products that are returned to us by the Jungle Scout web app will be protected by either trademark or patents. And if the product is, then you will not be allowed to sell that item on Amazon. You will be breaking both Amazon terms of service and possibly US law if you do so. Usually these products are pretty obvious, but sometimes they're not. The main category, which contains the most trademark items, is the sports and outdoors category and the clothing category. But particularly sport team clothing tends to be trademarked. If you're unsure about whether an item is protected by a trademark or a patent, then you should always double check. It's not worth not giving up 5 minutes of your time to make sure that you're legally eligible to sell that item on Amazon, only to end up having your Amazon account permanently suspended. Or even worse, end up with a lawsuit on your hands. That's why in a PDF directly following this lecture, I've attached a link to the US Patent and Trademark Office. If you're unsure about a particular product, then please use it. We don't want to compete with big brands when selling products on Amazon. In fact, When you run a search using the Jungle Scout web app, some of the products that appear will only be selling well because they're being sold with a particular brand label on them. Now, this is just the power of marketing. There's a good likelihood that a product would not be doing so well if it was being sold by a company that did not have the same level of brand authority. Now, we as ordinary sellers, we don't have nearly as much the same level of brand authority as the bigger companies that sell on Amazon. This means that customers are overwhelmingly likely to choose their brand over ours for the same product, even if our product looks like it's better quality and it's priced cheaper. Once again, this is just the power of brand authority. So when we go looking through the Jungle Scout web app for products later in the course, we need to be mindful of this. Now, a frequent question that people ask me is whether they should compete against Amazon when selling a product. And my answer is yes. And this is because Amazon don't tend to run pay-per-click advertisements on their own products. And they also don't tend to have optimized product listings, which is actually a subject that we're going to come to later in the course. You also have to remember that when you sell a product on Amazon, which Amazon is also selling, you're not really competing against Amazon, because for every sale that you make, Amazon receives a small portion of the money of that sale. So why would they want to outcompete you when they could have you pay for the ads on their website and have you go to all the trouble of creating an optimized product listing, and then at the end of it all, they get a cut of the final payment? The point is, do not be afraid to sell the same product as Amazon. Put simply, we want to sell products that sell well all year round, and not products that only sell well at particular times of the year. Now, without diving too deep into the theory of cash flows, because that could take up an entire course on its own, you just need to know that consistency of sales is incredibly important to any business. Most seasonal products are fairly obvious to spot, such as here on the right of the slide. We have sunglasses and Christmas lights. However, in some situations, it might not be overly obvious whether a product is seasonal. This can be particularly true for most outdoor items. So if you're unsure, then I recommend that you check. So that's why immediately following this lecture, I've attached a link to a PDF which is going to take you over to Google Trends. Now, Google Trends is an extremely easy tool to use which allows you to observe at what times of the year people are searching Google for whatever search term you enter. And as a general rule of thumb, you want to be looking for a flat graph, such as the one at the top right of this slide, and you want to avoid products which have a seasonal graph of the bottom right of this slide. You don't want to be seeing many rises or falls. So if you're unsure whether the product is seasonal, it takes 2 minutes to double check. We don't want to sell anything on Amazon which could have potential health risks for our customers. The fact is that health and safety standards in China are much lower than in the US. The US imposes strict laws on what is allowed to be sold to its citizens. However, in China, the majority of the time, such equivalent laws do not exist, or if they do, they're not nearly as strong, so we must keep this in mind. That's why, ever since starting my own FBA business, I followed the rule of do not sell anything that either goes on or inside of the body. Now, straight away, that rules out all food, lotions, creams, and makeup. But you might then say, but Ross, that's a ton of potential products that would be taking off the table. And my reply to that would be yes. You're right, it is. However, the alternative is simply too risky. Aside from obviously not wanting to sell anything that would harm our customers, there is also the legal side of things. If you sell something which ends up injuring or hurting a customer, then you could find yourself liable under law for doing so. So again, I strongly recommend not selling anything which is ingested or put on the skin. Okay, so next we're going to discuss product variations. We don't want to sell any product on Amazon that would require us to stock many variations of the same product. Variations usually include size and colour. And the reason we want to stay away from variations is due to the high numbers of returns that you'll usually experience. The main culprit here is typically clothing items. I've sold clothing items before on Amazon, and it's safe to say that they are one of the worst products for customer returns. And the reason usually has nothing to do with the quality of the product. 9 times out of 10, it's because the customer simply hasn't ordered the correct size. Or they've received the product and then they've decided they either don't like the colour or how the item looks on them. Another reason to stay away from multiple variations is that it becomes much harder to manage multiple inventory levels of the same product. Let's say you're selling the same t-shirt in different sizes, say 6, and then on top of that, imagine selling 3 different colours. That's a total of 18 variations. And by not selling all of those colours and sizes, you'd be excluding potential customers who either can't fit into the product or they don't like that specific colour. Now, it's not that you can't be successful selling clothing products on Amazon or products that require many variations on Amazon. You can, but why make life harder for yourself when there are plenty of much better opportunities with less headaches out there? This goes back to what I said at the start of the course. We want to make life as easy as possible for ourselves. And that way, we can focus our attention to the aspects of our business which matter the most.